Hi guys, welcome back to Shiloh, one of my favorite books written by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. It takes place in West Virginia, and it's the story of a young man. He's 11, so not quite a man, but he's 11 years old. His name is Marty, and just by accident happened to come across you hear my dog? You hear my dog playing with its little squeaky toy? Margo, I'm filming a video. Get out of here, kid. Anyway, he comes across a beagle. Margo. He comes across a beagle. This is a terrier. He comes across a beagle that happens to belong to Judd Travers. To Judd Travers. This is Margo, by the way. The beagle doesn't belong to Marty, but those two are meant for each other. Oh, Marty and Shiloh. But I think Judd suspects something because he has since come to Marty's house looking for Shiloh again, saying, listen, you said if you ever saw him again, you'd bring him back. And then, just in this last chapter, Judd happens to come across Marty as he's walking into town to go visit David Howard, his friend, and they have a chat in the truck about Shiloh yet again. And we learned something about Judd in the last chapter, didn't we? We learned that he had had a pretty tough childhood. And that might explain some of Judd's sharp edges. Do you know what I mean? Well, that brings us to chapter 7. So Margo is finally kind of settled down, I think. And we're going to read chapter 7 on page 56. Are you ready? I think she is. David Howard's house is about twice as big as ours for about half as many people. Only him and his ma and dad. Mr. Howard works for the Tyler Star News in Sistersville, and David's ma is a teacher. They're always glad to have me come down to visit, partly because David and I are best friends, and partly, I think, because their old house is so big, the three of them get lost in it. It's got 2 floors, 3 counting the basement, and 4 counting the attic. Has 4 bedrooms upstairs, 1 for David, 1 for his folks, and 1 for company, and 1 for his father's books with a computer in it. Downstairs, there's a big kitchen, a dining room with a fancy light hanging over the table, a parlor, and a side room with lots of windows just for plants, plus a porch that runs around 3 sides of the house. I told Ma once the Howards had a room just for company, a room just for books, and a room just for plants, and she said that was 3 rooms too many. First time I ever saw any envy in Ma. What do you think envy is? What's envy another word for? If you said jealousy, you are exactly correct. Ma was a little jealous of all that space. I imagine so, being cooped up in the house with her 3 kids and her husband. David says the house used to belong to his great-granddaddy, so I figure it'll get to be David's someday. Like maybe our little house on the hill in the meadow and the far woods will belong to me and Shiloh. Except I'd probably have to share it with Dara, Lynn, and Becky and whoever they marry. And that's a whole lot of people for 4 rooms. Marty, Mrs. Howard says when I ring their doorbell. It sounds like church chimes. Well, we're so glad to see you. Come on in. She always means it too. It's as though she thinks about me even when I'm not there. Then David comes whooping downstairs, carrying the helicopter that flies with you when you pull a string. And pretty soon we're all out in the backyard, chasing around after the helicopter and telling each other what we've been doing for the 6 weeks since school let out. I got to bite my tongue not to let on about Shiloh. This dog, get out of here. Sorry. We sit on David's back steps and eat popsicles as Ma makes out of pineapple juice. I tell David about the fox I saw with a gray body and a red head, and he tells me about his aunt's Siamese cat that just yowls howls for the pure joy of making noise. Then I tell him about Judd Travers and how mean he is to his dogs, not mentioning Shiloh, of course. And then David says he's got a surprise to show me. We go upstairs to his room, and David says he's got a pet and asks, do I want to hold it? Sure, I tell him. What is it? Sit down and close your eyes and hold out your hands, said David. I sit down on the edge of the bed and close my eyes and hold out my hands. I expect something warm and wiggly and furry to plop into my arms. Instead, I feel something cold and round and plastic. And when I look, it's a fishbowl with sand in it and a hermit crab scurrying around with a shell on its back. This is a pet? My first pet, David says. His name is Hermie. You see all those shells in there? We bought them for him. At night, he gets out of one and puts on another, just like changing clothes. I look at David and I look at that crab in the fishbowl, and I want to tell him about Shiloh and how we run up and down on the far side of the hill every day and roll in the grass and how he licks my face. And I can't tell him anything. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. Hermie's sort of fun, though. We get out David's old blocks, you know, the kind you played with back in kindergarten, and we build this big maze with walls on both sides, and then we put Hermie in it. Well, he skids along the maze looking which way to go, and we laugh when he gets himself in a dead end. I guess any kind of pet's okay once you get used to it, but I wouldn't trade Shiloh for all the hermit crabs in the world. Hey, when can I come to your house? David asked me when we put the blocks away. Oh, I don't know, I tell him. Ma's had sort of this headache lately, and she can't take any of the noise at all. Boy, I sure am asking for trouble with that one. What do you think he means? Boy, I sure am asking for trouble with that one. What does that mean? Well, we could stay out on that big hill, David suggests. Chase around in that field, play lookout. I don't think we ought to till she's feeling better, I say. I'll let you know, but I can come down here again next week, maybe. I tell Mrs. Howard I got to be home by late afternoon to help out, and she says surely I can stay for lunch, which is what I was hoping. I sit down at the table with placemats, which are little doll-sized tablecloths, one under each plate. Mrs. Howard's made us chicken salad sandwich with lettuce and tomatoes and toothpicks with olives on top to hold it all together. David's ma's like that. Top of page 60. I think it's because she's a teacher, always looking for ways to make something better than it is. She does the same with boys. She don't just leave us to eat by ourselves. My ma packs us a lunch and lets us eat out in the woods. Mrs. Howard always sits down to eat with us and talks to us about grown-up things. Today she tells us about how we've got some new people elected to office, like in the government, who are going to be more honest, she hopes, than the people they defeated, and how the country's going to be better because of it. And so will the whole state of West Virginia. David's ma thinks big. Well, you can't just go on electing people to government because they were friends of your fathers or grandfathers, she says, chewing on a bite of celery. Mostly, I'm thinking about the food. I eat every bit of my chicken sandwich. I'm so hungry, I don't even save some for Shiloh. Then I'm ashamed of myself. Mrs. Howard notices the way I pick up every little crumb, and she says, well, I have enough chicken salad for another. Half a sandwich, Marty. Would you like that? Sure would taste good on the walk back home, I tell her, and she sets right to work wrapping one up for me. Shiloh's dinner, I tell myself. The lunch isn't over yet. After the sandwich, there's tapioca pudding and chocolate-covered graham crackers, which I love almost as much as Christmas. I don't see any way of getting that pudding to Shiloh, so I eat that. But I ask, can I take a couple of cookies along to eat on the way home, too? And she opens up the stack and sticks in 6 cookies. Ma would have blushed with shame if she'd heard me ask for this. But it seems I'm at the point where I'll do most anything for Shiloh. A lie don't seem a lie anymore when it's meant to save a dog, and right and wrong's all mixed up in my head. Worse than that, when I leave David's house, I don't even head home. First, I go down the street to the corner store and ask Mr. Wallace, does he have any sort of old cheese or lunch meat he can sell me for cheap? I got 53 cents for cans I collected so far that Dad turned in for me, and I show Mr. Wallace how much I got. "Well, Marty, let me see what I can find back here," he says, heading back to the little room behind the counter. He's sort of talking without looking at me, the way folks do when they don't want to embarrass you. "I've got stuff here that's not exactly spoiled, but it's too old to sell. Wouldn't want your family getting sick on it, though." I blushed then, because Dad would die of embarrassment if he knew what Mr. Wallace was thinking. That I'm buying this food for our supper. But there's no way in the world I can let on about Shiloh. I give him all the change I got, and he lets me have a big chunk of cheese, moldy on one side, ugh, and a carton of sour cream, and half a package of frankfurters. Do you know what frankfurters are? Have you heard that expression before? Frankfurters are hot dogs. It's another word for hot dogs. So he bought some moldy cheese, a carton of sour cream, and half a package of frankfurters, or hot dogs, that somebody opened and bought 5 of. I'm as happy as a flea on a dog. Somehow, I know without asking that Mr. Wallace isn't going to go telling folks about it, because people around here tend to keep quiet and out of somebody else's business. Next problem I got to solve, though, is how to keep all this stuff from spoiling in the July heat. Can't keep it in our refrigerator or Ma would notice it right off. When I get home, Ma's ironing and watching TV, and Darylyn and Becky's out on the front swing with paper dolls spread out all over the place. So I fish around out in the shed until I find me an old high-C can. I sneak off through the hill with the can and all the food I got with me. Then, with Shiloh watching, I put a rock in the bottom of this can. And this can's kind of big. It's like a juice can. Those big juice cans that you get at the grocery store. And he puts a large rock. Sorry. I put a rock at the bottom of the can to hold it down. Set it in the cool stream, surround it with rocks, and put the container of sour cream, the frankfurters, and the cheese and cookies in there. I put a plastic lid on, and I set a large rock on the top to keep the raccoons out. I'm so proud of myself, I like to crow. Hungry again, too, but that half a chicken salad sandwich for Mrs. Howard is Shiloh's dinner, and I give it to him right off. After that, Shiloh and me go on a good long run over the meadow on the far side of the hill, and after I take him back, I put fresh water in the pie pan and love him good. I start down the hill. Halfway to the bottom, here comes Darylyn. "What you doing up here?" Oh, sorry, that was the wrong voice. That was Darylyn's voice. "What you doing up here?" I ask her, heart starting to thump. There was Marty's voice. "I just want to see what you're doing," she complains. "You go off up here every day almost." "Well, you leave Becky by herself while Ma's ironing." "Oh, Becky's okay." She turns and follows me back down the hill. Shiloh up in the pen don't make a sound. That's how smart a dog he is. "Well, I was looking for that snake again, but he's hiding from me good," I tell her. "You still didn't get him?" she asks. And when I look back, she's got her eyes to the left and then to the right. "You didn't even take your snake stick," she said. Ooh, she's a smart one, too. "Got me a stick back up on the hill," I tell her. "How many snakes you figure are up there, Marty?" "Oh, about 29 that you can see. Just baby snakes all over the place, though, hiding. Growing into big ones all the time." Darylyn's walking faster now, hurrying to get on by me, watching every place she sets her foot. I don't feel good about the lies I tell Darylyn, or David, or his ma. Don't feel exactly bad, neither. If what Grandma Preston told me once about heaven and hell is true and that liars go to hell, well, then I guess that's where I'm headed. But she also told me that only people are allowed in heaven, not animals. And if I was to go to heaven and look down to see Shiloh left below, his head on his paws, well, I'd run away from heaven for sure. Well, Marty has just lied and lied and lied, all to keep this sweet little dog Shiloh safe from Judd. What's your opinion? Is he doing the right thing? Is lying ever okay? I want you to think about that question. Is it ever okay to tell a lie? Or is a lie just a lie? Is a lie always bad? I look forward to talking to you about this soon. All right, gang, I hope you've enjoyed this chapter. Meet me in the next episode for Chapter 8. I can't wait to see what happens next. We'll see you soon, friends.